You were?
Yeah.
And you were also? No. Only one person? Yeah? Okay. So, I'll do a bit of overlap. So let's put our hands together. So, a couple more folks here. So far we have one person who was in my previous class. We have a couple of ways we can go, because it's a very multifaceted, very rich topic, and a lot of ways to go at it. I can tell you that Ravi Singh recorded our previous workshop, so if I don't repeat, if I don't cover some of what we did then, then you can get it there. But if you'd like, I could put hands up if you'd like me to cover others, like the secular version. This is Satnam to Wahe Guru's Morbi Guru Nanak and Sikh Dharma. That's what it was laid out to be. Ideally, you would take both of them, but if you'd like, I can also sneak in some of the other, which would bore you a little bit because you were in the other class. But as for the rest of you, which is like 95%, would you like me to go into a bit of the secular, what is Satnam? We got a vigorous head nod there. Okay, all right. So I'll start off with the Sikh Dharma version, just simply by saying Guru Nanak came into the world to save us from ourselves. You know, he wasn't born out of a lotus, and his mom wasn't a virgin. He was one of us, and his message was so strong that it shook the foundations of the Mughal Empire, which was, by many accounts, the richest empire of its time. So no small thing. I'm a historian, so do your own historical study, but that's what I see. Our topic, we call it From Satnam to Wahe Guru. Yogaji once used that term, Satnam. Satnam is an identity. It means engaging your identity. Engaging the question, who am I? And then answering, I am da da da. And then going from having a strong sense of who you are and manifesting that on a moment-to-moment basis and feeling good about it, to Wahe Guru, which means just having an ecstatic experience. So Satnam is not an experience per se, it's an exercise, it's a concept. But it's a very deep concept. And Wahe Guru, it's about as good as it gets. Wow. Gu means dark, Guru means light. So wow, I really enjoyed the journey of going from darkness to light. Everybody, imagine darkness and say Gu. Imagine light and say Guru. 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 There's a whole journey there in those two syllables. And you know what we don't do? We don't do it backwards. Imagine that journey, going from light to darkness. That's not our yoga. That is not our path. I'm being silly. Ever had a silly teacher before?
Yeah.
All right. So, but quite serious, you know. We've got a situation. Well, we've got. I mean, look. I live in a city where we have greater metropolitan area. We have now almost 500,000 Sikhs. So I know a lot of Sikhs, and I know the culture. I speak the language. I'm also a yogi, and most traditional Sikhs don't practice yoga, so that's interesting. I'm going to make a contrast between psychology today. Psychology, a very powerful body of practice and understanding of knowledge. And two, the second thing I'm going to contrast it with the Sikhism, which is generally practiced today. And I'm going to contrast that with what Guru Nanak shared. And then we're going to look at some of the issues with deviance in current practice, deviating from what Guru Nanak originally came out about. You know, I always, when I was young, before I heard about Sikhism, I always thought there might be some deviance between the whole version of Christianity and what Jesus originally put out. It just seemed there was a bunch of disconnects there. Like Jesus didn't do any bunnies, you know, he didn't have any sleigh, didn't have any shopping holidays. So same thing. We're not dumping on any particular religion. I'm saying as a Sikh that I see some disconnect. So we'll talk about that. So let's start, number one, let's go to psychology and psychotherapy and psychiatry today. There's a growing body of evidence-based knowledge and practice, which we call psychiatry or psychology. It's a disease-based medical model. Okay, well this is being taped. If you don't know what that is, we can ask about that later. But basically, the focus is on looking for problems, and what's wrong with you? And then fixing it with some drug or some therapy. Yes. Its origin is quite recent as far as the history of humanity goes, you know, the late 1900s. And as the Sikh psychologist said, very well-known Sikh psychologist Jaswant Singh Nikki, it is Eurocentric. It started in Vienna, and it's still pretty Eurocentric. Okay, that's psychiatry today. Sikh-e, as some people call it, or Sikh Dharma today, or Sikhs, if you wish, are the custodian of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib and the legacy of Guru Nanak. So there's a lot to be grateful for. Yogaji made that clear. You know, you may find fault with the beer-swizzling, shaven, debauched guy who calls himself a Sikh and wears a kara. But, you know, he and his generations have brought us the pristine word of the Guru to 2024. So there's something to be grateful for. They didn't switch it around. They kept it, and there was a lot of reverence. You know, when they were sober, you know, they did that. And for their weddings, they always had the Guru Granth Sahib, you know, whatever their quality of life or their personal integrity happened to be. And in the Guru Granth Sahib, there are therapeutic, here I'm coming across the scholar in me, the therapeutic methodologies, therapeutic techniques for mental distress. Japo mane Satnam, chant Satnam, Amrita Vela Satchanam, get up early in the morning and meditate. You know, all that, there's a psychiatric component there. Let's talk about Guru Nanak, the original Guru Nanak. So Guru Nanak, who people say traveled as far west as Mecca, north to Tibet, to Assam, the east of India, down south to Sri Lanka. His message had a cross-cultural resonance. Wherever he went, he was at home. There's a saying, a fool is best appreciated at home, but a great man, he's appreciated wherever he goes. Guru Nanak was one of those. People loved him wherever he went. It helped that he brought music. Usually he brought Mardana, and he brought his poetry, and they put it to music. So it was an entertainment night. But the message was very deep and very nurturing to people's souls. He was a master of body, mind, and self. He was a yogi. He empowered others. And he was a very potent role model. Guru Nanak was. Okay? We talked about three things so far: psychiatry, psychology today, Sikh Dharma today, and Guru Nanak 500 years ago. Now, we're going to look at, make a contrast between Sikhi, the Sikh community, the Sikh practice today as it was 500 years ago. For one thing, and I've lived in Sikh temples, so I know this information pretty firsthand, does not have the same cross-cultural resonance as Guru Nanak did. They even have, they call them missionary colleges. You know, the British colonized India, and they had their missionaries. And so one of the first things the Sikhs did, in British India, when they freed their gurdwaras, they said, we're going to make our own missionary college. You know, we'll show them. But the honest truth, the sad truth is that, you know, Yogi Bhajan came out, he was a missionary. But those missionary colleges, they don't know what they speak of. They don't learn foreign languages, they don't learn foreign cultures, it's all self-serving. It's all for the Punjabi community. It's a joke. So there's no cross-cultural resonance. It does not. You go to a Gurdwara and they're not going to teach you how to meditate, they're not going to teach you mastery of your body, your mind, and yourself, the sort of mastery that Guru Nanak had. Typically, most people there don't have it, and it's not even particularly considered something that should be taught in a Gurdwara, or even that it's important. In Ontario, I mean, we have immigrants, and they want to get established. They want to buy a house. I mean, they want to get materially and socially established. Those are the priorities there. Nobody comes from India to Toronto to teach Sikh Dharma. Doesn't happen. Not that I know of. I've yet to meet anybody. And it does not empower. You don't go to a Gurdwara if you want to be like Gobind Singh and get empowered. I mean, that was the routine. I would say Guru Nanak has two axes. There's a horizontal axis, which is his beautiful vision, very broad vision, embracing all of humanity. Which, I mean, there are people I can tell you about, or buy my book, 5 Paragons of Peace, and it goes into a lot of history in Europe at that time who had that vision, and they were burned at the stake. This was not good Catholicism. You know, there are the elect, they're going to heaven, everybody else is going to hell. So Guru Nanak saying that it doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your social status. That's very empowering, and it's it was very ahead of its time. So, but you don't find that in the Gurdwaras, where typically people do, you know, they marry within their social station, and you know, there's no similarity, there's hardly any comparison to what Guru Nanak taught and how he lived, and what you'll find in a Gurdwara, though they recite his words endlessly. There's a word entropy. Entropy means that something dies out over time. Sometimes it's used in terms of physics, like a star. A new star starts off white and blue, and an old star becomes red, and eventually it just dies out. People too. People start off young and sparkly and adorable and playful, and they end up, you know, what's the thing with the riddle, the Sphinx, you know, you start off on 4 legs, and then you're on 2 legs, and then you're on 3 legs with your cane, and you're just suffering through life, you know. So that's entropy. So it happens with institutions, it happens, and it happens with the religions, my experience. You know, in the early years, Christianity, there were a lot of martyrs, a lot of sacrifices, but it was a very fresh inspiration. Even the Pope, I understand, the current Pope, he was telling his priests just a couple of weeks ago before it came to Solstice, you shouldn't have such long sermons anymore. People fall asleep in your churches. You know? Well, it happens in Gurdwaras too, people fall asleep, you know. Yeah, entropy. And so, of course, you know, Guru Nanak made fun of rituals and priesthoods and all that stuff, but guess what? In the Gurdwaras we have the same darn thing. When I lived there, I remember somebody, poor soul, you know, ignorant person, came to me, will you do a prayer for me? Well, just, when is it your own prayer, you know? But he wasn't expecting that, and there was no way he was going to do his own prayer. He wanted to pay somebody to pray, because they would have a special link, yeah, because I don't know why. I don't know. He was just trained that way. Yeah, and then there's the good old colonialism, the colonial mentality of, you know, getting your mind beaten up and your self-esteem beaten up that the great white father in Europe, that they've got everything right and you're just a brown person in underdeveloped country, and you know, you kowtow to the great white lord. And I mean, Sikhs won't talk like that. Sikhs typically have a very high self-esteem, but I've written a book about it. You know, when they tie up their beards, or they shave their hair, or they're, you know, they decorate their house with Western art rather than Eastern art. There's so many ways. Or they wear three-piece suits rather than wearing, you know, wonderful, beautiful Punjabi attire. You know that they've kind of lost it. There. And then there's, oh gee, you know, Guru Nanak was quite rational, quite, in a way, scientific. I mean, he didn't tell fairy stories. He didn't tell, you know, if you get up early in the morning, nobody's done a proper study on, scientific study. I know what those are. Nobody's done a proper study, but do your own personal experiment. What does it feel like? You know, do a journal, and then force yourself to sleep in for whatever, 2 weeks or so, and see, you know, experiment. I mean, I get complaints sometimes that some of the preachers, they come from small towns in Punjab, and they really do the fairy story kind of thing. And then Guru Nanak flew to Mecca and all that stuff. You know, very, you know, which goes, you know, if you're from a farm and this is what you're used to hearing in the Gurdwara, those kind of folk stories. It's a kind of culture. It's a kind of, you know, it's cultural anthropology is fine, but it's not empowering, it's not necessarily particularly scientific. And I don't think, you know, there's a saying, Khalsa will rule the world. I don't think with telling those kind of stories you're going to really win over people's hearts and take over the world. I just look at you kind of funny. Oh, that's a nice story, thank you very much. You know, I'll write an anthropology essay about it. Okay, so, I can't go further without, I shouldn't go further without mentioning the trouble with yoga. I mean, if you go to, I mean, most Sikhs are not 3HO Sikhs. They'll come of some origin in Punjab, and they'll tell you there's a lot of trouble with yoga. Sikhs don't do yoga. They'll tell you. I've written a book which explores the topic in detail, and I'm absolutely convinced Guru Nanak was a yogi, and yoga is integral to the Sikh discipline, to the Sikh tradition. But still, what they'll do is they'll quote Guru Nanak, and he did challenge the yogis of his time, who had some problems. They didn't have yoga centers, and they were all guys. So issues: one, the yogis of that time, and many yogis still today, are elitist. Elitist. That's not healthy. But don't be elitist. You know. Nanak would say, I'm the dust of the saints' feet. That's the attitude. Or Yogi Bhajan would say, you know, 3HL, we have a pyramid system, but it's an upside down pyramid. You guys, all you new folks, are at the top. And, you know, the yoga teachers are next serving you. And the ministers are next serving them. The senior ministers serve them. And the Khalsa Council serves everybody. And once upon a time, there was a Siri Singh Sahib, and he got phone calls 26 hours a day, just serving everybody. So that's the kind of elitism we have. You're number one, and I'm not, and I'm happy here. I'm a human sacrifice. We joked about that the other day. That's yoga, when you dedicate yourself to the good of all. Yeah? All right? So that's the kind of elitism we practice. But the yogis, there's a line in the Japji Sahib, I Panti Sagal Jamati. So a very elitist yoga sect was called the I-Pantis. They thought they were so good, you know. For example, they didn't look at women, you know, they ate very little, they did pranayama day and night, and they thought they lived a long time. And they thought they were just the best. But Guru Nanak said, I-Panti Sagal Jamati. He said, make your I-Panti, your elite yoga group, all of humanity. That's the place to go. And serve everybody. And they'll put on ears, you know. It's escapist, the kind of yoga they were practicing, the kind of yoga, even the kind of, you know, the people who run off to monasteries. Guru Nanak's message, our message, Guru Gobind Singh's message, Yogi Bhajan's message is be engaged. Yoga means engagement. So first engage with yourself. You know, we can be beside ourselves and not really in touch with ourselves. So once you get in touch with yourself, get in touch with the world. You know, there's a lot of suffering out there, a lot of suffering, and there are issues. Somebody just told me, I mean, I've been out of touch with public affairs, but somebody just told me that Putin and so Russia and North Korea just signed a pact. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, America has plenty of pacts too. Don't worry about it. It's not that they're not responding. Anyway, so do you want to be engaged? You don't want to be escapist. They are misogynists. I told you, women couldn't join the club. Which is kind of funny, isn't it, 2024? I don't think there's any yoga studios that don't allow men in yet. But you know that most yoga studios, it's mostly women, right? Look around here, right? And that's a whole interesting topic. Why? But we're not going there right now. And then they were into body harming. They were into extreme discipline, you know, burning their bodies or freezing their bodies or standing on one foot or holding up an arm until the arm withers and all kinds of self-torture. So, yeah, indeed, there's a problem with yoga, some kinds of yoga. Yeah, we don't want to go there. But the yoga, the Raj Yoga, the Guru Nanak practice, the Yogi Bhajan practice that we teach here, that's a whole other story. All right. And that's difficult. I mean, if you've been brought up that yoga is a bad thing and Sikhs don't do it, it's really hard to convince anybody otherwise. And also for the majority, our brothers and sisters. I mean, Yogi Bhajan imprinted on us, those of us who would listen, okay? That we here in 3HO, we're so blessed with Satnam, so blessed with Gurbani, and so many things. We actually have a mission to reach out to our sisters and brothers out there who don't get yoga at all, who've been brainwashed that yoga is a bad thing, and that Sikhism is a second-rate religion, all that kind of stuff, which they won't admit, but in practice that's the way they seem to take it, because they won't teach it. You know, one of the great fears that the Punjabi Sikhs will have is their assimilation into Hinduism. And if you look at the numbers, you know, there's about 2% of India's population is Sikh and about 80% is Hindu. You can maybe appreciate that and just notice, you know, when there's intermarriage, sometimes the Hindu aspect takes over. Or, I mean, anywhere, frankly, where people of two different religions marry, typically the children have neither religion. That can be a problem as well. Okay, so yeah, Guru Nanak instructed the wayward yogis, these escapists, these misogynist, elitist, body-harming yogis. He did that, and then his son, Baba Sri-Chand, picked up the work. So I feel very strongly. I mean, I was brought up with very strong self-esteem, and not lacking for a brain, although I dropped out after grade 10 because they really weren't teaching me much. And besides, I wanted to join the revolution. If you know the history, there was a cultural revolution going on, and there was blood being shed, and I knew enough about history that when there's an important cause and people need to make sacrifices, those people of conscience need to step forward. So I was 16. 2 years later, I was living in an ashram. That's another story. So what I'm getting at is that pardon me if I go a little off, but there's so many different trails we can go here. So yes, I'm thinking big picture. I'm thinking that Satnam is something that can really, I'm not joking, really change the world. I've done successful human rights cases. I've done, you know, we have Peace Prayer Day here, we have a tradition. I took that to the University of Toronto. We did a whole week called Peace Prayer Week when the Iraq War, the last one, started. And then we did it every year at Remembrance Day, the Veterans Day, you call it. So we didn't stop the war, but I don't mind trying. And one of the routes I've taken, I've looked for kindred spirits in the Sikh community, people who think analytically. And what I found, which was interesting, I found academic papers. You all know academic papers, what those are? No? It means the scholars, people who have a PhD, they get ideas, original ideas, and maybe one, maybe two, maybe 50, they get together and they put together their new idea and they share it with other people. And if it really doesn't seem like a great idea, no journal will publish it. But if it seems like it's a good idea, people will look at it in a certain journal. And some journals are more respected than others, but if you're lucky, you'll get a journal that really smart people read, and they will actually buy into your theory, and they will publish it to share with other people. Right? So I was looking around for something to relate Sikh Dharma and psychiatry, and I found there were 2 papers by 4 authors with Sikh names, and one was Sikhism, spirituality, and psychiatry. Another one was asking, is depression described in the Guru Granth Sahib? So I thought that was interesting. So there are people from a Sikh background using a scientific lens, a psychiatric lens. And so basically, so I read their paper, and basically what they say is the Guru prescribes this, listening to the hymns. This is what you do if you have psychiatric issues, or if you're depressed or distracted. Listen to the hymns, obey the Guru's teachings. There's 5 things. Number 3, recite the Naam. I guess that means Satnam or Wahe. Number 4, meditate on the Naam and have your subjective experience from that. See how it feels. And hang out with saints, good people. Okay, so these are scholars, okay? These are not people with a whole lot of necessarily spiritual experience, but you know, I wanted to go there to see what's there. What do they have to say? And what I found was interesting is that's not nearly the whole package. I mean, service of others, just totally missing. You know, forget about mind, body, you know, engage your body, engage your navel. Even Guru Nanak was talking about that in some of his, he says, you know, your peace lies at your navel. But you won't find that in the Gurdwara, you certainly won't find it from Sikh scholars. I've engaged this senior-most colleague, writer here. He's at Oxford University. He was born into a Sikh family. And I'm pushing this case that Satnam is a very powerful concept. Whether we call it Satnam or in the secular world, I would call it intrinsic being. Basically being yourself at a deep and profound level. So what I'm looking for, I think what we're looking for as people who love the healthy, happy, holy vision, who embrace that, we're looking for something, a Sikhism, a Sikh Dharma, that is life-affirming, that embraces life, that is conducive to life. I coined a word for it. I took the word bio, which means life, and geneic, which comes from the word genesis. So this is what generates life. I would love to use the word pro-life, but we know we can't use that in America, right? So somebody took that and they're doing awful things with it. But the biogeneic works. It's not biogenetic, it's close, I know, but biogeneic, okay? So we're looking for something that's life-enhancing, which we, you know, as I told you, we don't necessarily find that in Gurbani. But we're looking for something that Guru Nanak did that. I mean, the thing that E.T. did, you know, he brought that plant back to life, if you remember that movie? Guru Nanak, he had similar stories. It's weird. And not that we want to do, you know, miracles, that's not the thing. But I think those kind of stories just symbolize how alive and how vital E.T. was, for example, or Guru Nanak. Make sense? All right. Also transcultural. Remember transcultural? It can't be just something that just resonates for Punjabis. Or something that just resonates for Americans. It has, you know, if you've really got the Sikh Dharma that Guru Nanak lived, it's got to be something that can resonate in Thailand, or Pakistan, or Afghanistan, or Romania, or Bolivia. It's got to have that kind of resonance, right? Or it's something else. You know, it's not what Guru Nanak was teaching. It's got to be empowering. Like I told you, you don't find empowerment in the Gurdwara. They will do a ceremony. They will make you, quote unquote, Khalsa. Yogaji had a critique about that. He said, you know, if you want to take Amrit and be a Khalsa, be a bona fide, hardcore Sikh, first you should really, I mean, to make it make sense, you've got to be able to sit and meditate for 2.5 hours. You can't do that. What are you really? You know, I mean, you've got to be a little deep. And you're not deep if you can't meditate seriously. You know, you can take all the rituals you want. You can wear, you know, 50 pounds of steel, kara steel on here, you know, and a big turban. But if you can't meditate, who do you think you are? Really. And what are you good? Who are you? You know, what are you good for? You know, who are you serving? Except for yourself, maybe an overinflated sense of self. So, and then we're looking for something that's scientific, that hangs together, that's not full of cock and bull stories, you know, make-believe, fantasy, and then he flew. And it doesn't lean too much on miracles. I mean, you know, Einstein had a beautiful thing he said about miracles. He said, you know what? There's two possibilities about miracles. Either they don't exist, or everything's a miracle. I like the second one. Yeah? I don't go looking for, I don't lean on the stories about Sikh miracles either. I think the system hangs together really well. We don't need somebody to reanimate himself from the dead. And we don't need a virgin birth. It hangs together. It's a very humanistic, decent system. Yeah. And then we have, God bless us, we have theology. You know, that's part of what we're up against as well. Let's see what I have here. A poem came to me one day. I really don't like theology very much. You know, we have, there is, you know, EkOngKar in the translation, there is but one God. You know, what is that? You know, truth is his name. Huh? What does that mean, really? And why is it he all the time, right? So, this poem came to me one day. Every once in a while God sends me a message. And it goes like this. Theology is a monstrosity. Theo is my friend. Theo says to say to you, this travesty must end. All your written tablets and all your ivory towers could never hope to equal a spring meadow filled with flowers. And all your shiny experts, trained to think and preach and fight, don't hold a lamp to the saints and souls who would have this world unite. The beat of a heart is a constant prayer that mostly goes unheard. Love is all, and all is love. And that's the final word. So what I'm saying is, you know, theology, we need to really, it messes us up. It does, you know, there is but one God. What is that? And that really, really came home to me. I had an experience, there was a wonderful woman in northern New York State, near Ithaca. She had a home in the country with her husband and three children, and she put on a Khalsa camp for the children every summer for I think 6 weeks or more. And children would come from all over the eastern seaboard and from Canada. Well, it means maybe 20 children, and the mothers would come, sometimes the fathers would come. And have a lot of fun. They would do yoga, they would do art. She was trained in art, she was a trained educator. And there were animals, they had cats and dogs and ducks and llamas, and a lot of fun. And we had a Gurdwara there. This is where I'm getting to. We had a Gurdwara there. And of course we had Prashad, that's the big attraction. But we also had Kirtan, and we did a prayer, we did the Ardas, and we take a hukum. You know the hukum? That's where somebody, reads. If you go into the Gurdwara. If I say hukum, how deeply do I need to describe it? Put up your hand if you don't know hukum, and don't be embarrassed. Okay, so hukum is like, the I Ching? You heard of the I Ching? Or tarot cards, we do the same thing. It's banned by the Christian Church, by the way. It's called bibliomancy, and it was banned around the 2nd century. But we do it. We're not Christian, right? So we consult our guru in a sort of a magical, sort of random way, and whatever it opens, that's our word for the day. And of course, there's translations in Spanish. We have Spanish, English translations. There's other translations. So at the camp, at the Khalsa camp, where the children were aged from 2 years to 9 years, we similarly had a translation. Problem is an adult translation, right? So the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 4-year-old is going to, even the translation, sometimes we laugh at that particular translation. It has some really funny words like, some of you might remember the Myrmidons and the Mumpers and, the Viaticum and the Courier of Death. But, it's a little much for the adults even. So I'm sitting there and I just have this thing that I like to see things through the other person's eyes, and I'm listening from a 3-year-old's point of perspective, and the whole thing is just blur. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I took it upon myself to, once the hukum happens, to translate it into Childspeak. And it was not an easy job. But for me, it was very humbling, and it led me to a point a few years later where I said, well, I wonder what the whole Mool mantra, we put the Mool mantra into Childspeak, I wonder what that would look like or sound like. And I did it, and I did a really fun thing. I've got a book if you want to pick it up. It's cheap. It's on Amazon for $6 or something. But I ended up having a youngster. I gave her my translation of the Mool mantra, each section of it, and I also gave her a negative of it for contrast. I'll explain that in a minute. And then we made pictures of every part of the Mool mantra. So the youngster, she was about 7 years old at the time. It's amazing. She just picked it up really quickly and made lovely pictures, which I don't have. I don't have that, but you know what? I could even email it to you if you want. I'm not into this for the money. Okay? But look, here's what we say, EkOngKar. Let me tell you a little story first. A story about a man. His name was Vince. His name was Vince. Now he thought he was a great painter. Every painter starts that way, and some people quit before long. But this guy was very convinced he was a good painter. And you know, he was not very rich. He didn't have rich parents, but he was very determined that he wanted to make beautiful things. And so he had his, second grade paint and his second grade brushes and his third grade canvases, and he just went to town and did that, did his thing. And some people liked it, and some people said, Vince, that's weird. Why do you do like, you could do it this way. But he just kept going. He wouldn't give up. And he made canvases and he made canvases, and he carried on for his whole life. So, once upon a time there was one Vincent, right? Now there are hundreds of Vincents, and they're worth more than $1 million each. Vincent's last name was Van Gogh. The thing is that he poured himself into his work. There was oneness between the artist and his art. There was not a smidgen of duality there, no doubt. His passion, he was passionate in that. And so that is for me, there's an analogy for ik means one, EkOng means creator, kar, creation. So I translate that not as there is but one God, which doesn't help me at all. I've never met God, with the 6 arms and sitting on a throne. I don't know that guy. But there is oneness between the creator and the creation. Like there was oneness between Vincent van Gogh and his art.
Your body hurts.
As there is between a yogi and their life. As there is between all kinds of artists and just people who are very, very inspired. A freedom fighter, for example. There are all kinds of people. Doctors, people who have their heart is on fire, their spirit is on fire, and they, I used the word the other day, they are a human sacrifice, in the best possible way. They have, sacrifice means to make sacred. Their life has become sacred, has become beautiful because of how selfless they are. They have just given themselves. They don't care, sleeping on the floor, eating muck, they don't care, as long as they get to do their mission. So, EkOngKar means that there's oneness between the creator and the creation. Does that make sense? Or do you like, there is but one God? I've got the Spanish version too. Whatever it is, I don't have it just right in front of me. But it's been translated in many ways. There is no ein Gott. Heaven help me. Alright? Sikh Heil, whatever the hell. So the child's version of EkOngKar is, think about it, I play well. Isn't it? When the child is in that zone, they're one with their play, they play well, right? Even Guru Nanak in his Japji, Kele Sagal Jagat, the whole world is a play. And when you're in that zone, it's all play to you. You get martyred, it's just play, I mean, that's about as bad as it gets on this planet, you get isolated and crucified. But for somebody who's just poured themselves into it, there's no fear whatsoever, it's play. But the opposite of EkOngKar is, I am bored. You ever heard a child say that? I'm bored, Mommy. I'm bored. Well, that's the opposite of being in that zone of playing. Satanam, I borrow a little from Yogi Ji here. I am myself. God and me and God are one. Satanam. Right? Yeah. In adult language, I call it intrinsic being. Being your ultimate, honest self, your authentic self. But the opposite is, I want attention. Right? If you're not paying attention to yourself, if you haven't learned that art, if you're not paying attention that way, and very keen on paying attention to others, then you want other people's attention. Somehow attention is necessary. Kartapurk means the doing being. It basically means, it talks about activism basically. The doing being is a very short, it's an aphorism. It's a sutra. It means basically, by your nature, you're active until you stop breathing. So you can get engaged in this, that, or the other thing. Preferably something wonderful, something memorable, something ecstatic, something wonderful. So the positive of it, kartapurk, the doing being, is I'm not discouraged. I'll just keep doing and doing and doing, even if people don't like my art, or whatever it might be. And the opposite is there's no point in trying. You get it? Yeah. Nirbo, nirver is pretty simple. But, if you look at the theological versions, God is fearless and without revenge. Heaven help you, I am fearless and without revenge. I remember Yogaji gave such a beautiful talk about the Mool mantra here some years ago, before the summer solstice. And he made that really, really clear. We're not talking about something up in the sky. It's about us. And that makes it serious, and it's personal. Can you be fearless without vengeance? Today? Tomorrow? Forget about yesterday. Past is past. Can you do that now? And the opposite, of course, is I am afraid and angry. But you know what? This talk is about Satnam in particular, so I'm not going to finish the Mool mantra here and now. There's so many other things to talk about. Okay, you get the idea? You get the gist of it? All right. Satnam. Here I'm going to just diverge a little bit and go back to the humanistic, the secular version. What are we talking about? Intrinsic being. And I looked at it. I've looked at this for many years. I first came to Kundalini Yoga, and I loved everything. One thing I couldn't get was Satnam. Everybody says Satnam, but I loved everything so much that I said, I'll figure it out eventually. It took me 50 years, but I think it took me 50. I think I got it. So basically, there are two kinds of motivation in the world. And there are papers now that have been written that weren't written for most of Yogi Bhajan's life. They're fairly recent, about two kinds of motivation. One is intrinsic, one is extrinsic. Most of the papers are about extrinsic. Extrinsic means the corporations love this stuff, where they can make you do stuff that ordinarily you wouldn't do. Either with a carrot approach, rewards, or a stick approach, threats, we'll fire you or whatever, right? And so that's the predominant approach. And even Guru Nanak talked about it in Asadivar. He said, the whole world runs on fear. The whole world runs on fear. Everybody's afraid of something, afraid of what other people think, afraid of not eating, afraid of getting punished, afraid of being eaten. But of course there's one power greater than fear. Love, right? And so I looked at this and I recognized one, intrinsic being is characteristic of young children, right? The children are totally self-motivated. They don't need to be told what to do. And sometimes even if you tell them what to do, they have other ideas. Even if you try to bribe them, threaten them, good luck, right? And which I think is a beautiful, charming thing, as long as their life isn't being endangered, right? Then comes the yogi or the gifted artist, those people, they are governed from within, and you can't make them change. Now, my unique contribution, and buy in if you like, you can write a paper with me or make a video about it, share the message, but is that, yes, there are motivations that are extrinsic, intrinsic. There are also states of being which are predominantly extrinsic. There are people that are predominantly extrinsically motivated, and there are people that are predominantly intrinsically motivated. In fact, everybody goes through the stage of predominant intrinsic motivation when they're 2 years old. And then we get conned out of it, or something happens. It's not something we've studied as a science. How do children become adulterated? Okay, not something we know. We haven't studied. We just haven't. So, but the qualities of intrinsic being. Okay, here you go. And you can add to this. In Argentina, I got a couple new ones. So when I was there in February. So if you can think of something I overlooked, please. So how about non-judgmental, not condemning, right? We call it innocent, maybe. Fearless, playful, energetic. Have you seen those mothers running around? Where do they get the energy? You know, children running around their feet. Poor mom. All right, energetic, joyful, self-confident, readily forgiving, in the present moment, emphatic. You know, I want this. You know, kind. Typically, the children are very kind. Authentic. I mean, you don't tell a child, "Be yourself, Johnny." I mean, Johnny, that's something you tell an adult, right? Typically adults, you know, kind of lost themselves. But helpful, I mean, children love to help. You want to help mommy? Yeah, sure, I always want to help mommy. Or papa. Shameless, right? Even a good yogi can be shameless too. Sometimes, I mean, Yogi Bhajan was shameless at times. It's not, it's just, he was blunt because the culture was so shameless, you know? He needed to speak, and imaginative and curious. So beautiful qualities. I don't think there's anything on that list that's not a beautiful quality. But you know, we get educated out of them, or whatever that all happens, and we don't even study the process. But you know, the good news is that in Kundalini Yoga, I mean, I also do Kundalini as trauma yoga, as therapy for trauma, and you could argue that becoming an adult is a traumatic experience. You know, going through school and all the grading and all the shaming and all the bullying. And so you need to get de-traumatized. The beauty that we have here is that we're not just talking about something that happened when you're 2 years old. We're talking about something because of the wonderful power of this yoga that we can reinvigorate, that we can reignite in an adult. If they're willing to do the work. You don't have to do it. But if you're dedicated and you want to do it, wonderful things. I've seen wonderful things happen. Doesn't it? You've seen it? Just someone come here. Okay. And of course, yeah. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? It ties in with, there's a beautiful book. Any of you know of Bronnie Ware and the 5 Top Regrets of the Dying? You can Google it if you like. I'll just go through it. You know what, I'm not going to give you the top 5. I'll just give you the top 3. But it ties in really well with this concept of intrinsic being. Number 3 is, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. People are dying. Get it? She was working with people who are doing hospice care, people who are dying, right? They have a disease which basically is killing them. Basically, they are killing themselves. Emotionally, the emotional charge, the toxicity of the place where they're at has been so strong that it's generated a toxic, a fatal disease, a terminal disease, and now they're dying. And so one of the regrets that triggered their disease was not having the courage to express their feelings. Now they're saying, in hindsight, damn, I wish I'd had the courage to do that. Number 2 is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. But number one, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That's intrinsic. That's Sadhana, as I understand it. Make sense? See? So it's a huge subject. And obviously, you know, what I'm saying indirectly is not being Satnam, not engaging Satnam, and there's a lot of people who don't know what the word Satnam is, but it can kill you. You know, just being extrinsically motivated, pleasing other people all the time, trying really hard, trying so hard, you know, it can kill you to no effect. For what? So Satnam, so that we're doing the Sikh Dharma version. Satnam is there in the Mool mantra. It's really early up in the top of the Mool mantra. It's in the Japji where it says Amrita Vela Satchanam Vadhyaya Vichar. It says in the early hours of the morning, meditate on your Satnam, on who you are, meditate on your intrinsic self, and on the meaning of greatness. Vadhyaya means great. Vadhyaya means char. So meditate at the same time. Meditate on your real you are. Not what other people want from you, but meditate on your calling, what your heart is telling you, and also on the meaning of greatness, and how those two things tie together. Does being yourself, does that mean being puny and small so nobody can see you anywhere? Or does it mean something else? Maybe, just maybe, being yourself is a magnificent prospect and inspiring to other people. You know? To be themselves and to be magnificent and wonderfully themselves. Nothing else. That's how they say it in French. They say, be yourself. How do you say it again, Marie? Simplement. Yeah. So be yourself simply. Simply be yourself. It's not hard. I mean, it is. Actually, it's hard. Because we've been brainwashed, right? It is hard. But it's not complicated, is what I mean to say. Right? Don't be Lord Shiva or be somebody, try to look like E.T. or something like that. No. We're talking about a 2-year-old. Swear allegiance to the 2-year-old in you. Plus, don't forget the skills you learn, because sometimes those skills, in a world which is deprived and suffering in so many ways, the skills can be useful. You know, if you have a medical degree or any skill you've learned as an adult can help to alleviate some people's suffering. Teaching people, sure. It can help to make the world a better place. We're not thinking about going to an infantile state. I'm 2 years old. No. But there's something. I mean, didn't Jesus say, "Lest you become His children"? You're not going there. We were saying, keep the children away. The children are bothering Jesus. He said, no. Bring them here. That's where it's at. And if you don't be like that, you're not going where you want to go. Right? So we spent a lot of time on cultural referencing in the other class. We're not going to do that so much here. There are a lot of places you can go and say, this is a message, this is a movie, this is a book, this is a poem about that beautiful, charming, wonderful state of being, which is not that far away. It's you. It's the real, not the other one. But so since we're doing the Dharma thing, here's a fantastic thing. In Japji there's also a word. Can you all say Satnam? Now say Satchanao. It's the same. It's just a different way of saying it. Satcha, Sat, Now, name. It's the same. And so that's in the Japji. Satchanao. And there's a word in there also in Japji. Satyar. Satyar means somebody who's realized their Satnam. Say Satyar. Give Satyara hoya, give Kure tutte pa. How can somebody be a self-realized, intrinsic person and rip apart the veil of delusion? And then it says, get up early in the morning and meditate on the truth. Satyara. So that's what we want to be. We want to be Satyaras. Or also in the Mool it says, Ad Sach, Jugad Sach. Same thing. We want to be real. We want to be authentic. We want to be just so real and compassionate, because the children are compassionate, the saints are compassionate, yogis are compassionate to us. Guru Gobind Singh said, "Prema kiyo tinahi prabhapayo." That person who loves has realized God. So you may think you're the most authentic person on the planet, but if you're unkind, you're delusional. Your essence is kindness. Bhagavad Das did an amazing thing. He's the first Sikh historian. He lived in the times of Guru Amar Das. He related to Guru Amar Das, the third Guru. He lived through the time of Guru Ram Das, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. So he wrote a lot of history, or philosophy. He was the secretary for Guru Arjan, helped him compile the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. And he wrote poetry. His work was so high that the Guru said, well, we can put your work in the Guru Granth Sahib too, along with my stuff. But Bhagavad Das said, no, I don't want that honor. But it's beautiful, and it's the oldest Sikh history. And so what I found fascinating, given how Yogaji emphasized Satnam so much, but we go, to the majority Sikh community, who I love, and there's so many beautiful Sikh temples, and there's a lot going on there, but the message, I think, is off. And they don't relate to Satnam at all. They say, why are you chanting Satnam? What's wrong with you? Sat Sri Akal, or Wahe Ji Ka Khalsa, or something like that. Satnam? Are you crazy? What's wrong? Are you one of those Yogi Bhajan followers? You know? He would call it Satnam or something. But look, here's where it's interesting, you know, who's really authentic. Look at this. Bhai Gurdas, he wrote a long piece about Sikh, all things Sikh, let's call it that. And he starts off, this is the first stanza of the first verse of this piece. It's called the Vars of Bhai Gurdas. He says, I bow to the true Guru, who gave the world the mantra of Satnam. That's the first thing he said. Pulling people out of the terrible ocean, he promptly gave them liberation. He gave them Satnam. That's this big accomplishment. So I think it should make Sikhs who are serious about their Sikhism rethink what they're doing. Well, what's this with Satnam? What is Satnam? And how does that relate to me and my practice, in my life? And to the religion as it's practiced, which I don't think there's much relationship at all. And you know, every day, I mean, just to indicate how grounded Satnam is in Sikh practice and Sikh tradition, every Gurdwara, every time we have a Gurdwara here, there's always the Anansa, you know? Nanda Biya Mere Maya Sat, and it's called Anand. Anand means bliss, and Sahib means like holy bliss. So it's a song from Guru Amar Das, the third Guru, about, he goes takes a lot of different ways of looking at, you know, how to be blissful in a conscientious way, you know, without cocaine, without human trafficking, and all those weird things. But he would say, Sacha Naam Mera Adharo. He said, Satnam is my foundation. Satnam is my foundation. So Satnam is the most important thing Guru Nanak gave the world, his students, let's say, and Guru Amar Das, who's a very qualified yogi and a guru, says it's the true name, this intrinsic being, this not being pushed around by circumstance, but by doing my practice and getting my guidance from within. That's my foundation. And if you want, you can read Psalms as well. It's interesting, you know, David talks about, you know, the Lord is my shepherd, but also my fortress, and there's different analogies. Basically, I mean, it's a big jump, because that's like 3,000, 2,000 years ago. You'll be sure that the Jewish lobby totally arguing you against you, but it sure looks pretty clear to me. Look at it sometime. Or even there's that one psalm that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Oh God! And seriously, that's there. That's there. I can direct you if you want. Take my card and I can direct you. Okay. And Guru Arjan said, "You were called by many names." He's speaking of God. According to your attributes. So God is the creator, God is the destroyer, God is the nurturer, God is the most beautiful, God is this. The Jap Sab is full of a lot of adjectives for God. But Guru Arjan says, but Satnam is your foremost essential name. This is the foremost name for what we call God. Being, that being, that wonderful being, which is at the heart of who you are. When you stop running around trying to please everybody else and start to engage the cosmos as a servant, really. You know, let me tell you, we did this last time too, but it's so fundamental, and it's so fundamentally not taught, that I'll share with you the 3 pillars of yoga. First pillar of yoga is tapas. Tapas means embrace hardship. Tapas, T-A-P-A-S. And without that, no growth ever happens anywhere, and there's no yoga. But that alone is not yoga. Tapas, the second is svadhyaya. Svadhyaya means self-study. So particularly study yourself, make a contrast study between yourself under pressure and not under pressure. Now, let's say you're a new student, as we have some here these days, at Solstice, and you're just getting up at 4 o'clock in the first time. You're going to be feeling a little beside yourself, a little uncomfortable, right? And so, but what a good yogi does is they work on themselves so that they can be under pressure. They can be out of their comfort zone and not be beside themselves. They can be consistent. That is a very magical place. It can take time. You know, suppose you're not used to getting up at 4, you usually get up at 8. So if you're a serious yogi, you might say to yourself, not to anybody else, you're not bragging to other people, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to start getting up at 7 or whatever, for 40 days, for 6 months, and then I'm going to start getting up at 5. I'm going to lick this thing. I'm going to master it. Right? So I'm feeling just as good at 4 as at any other time. And there's no, in fact, time during the 24 hours of the day where I'm not feeling just great, just fine. Understand? And the cold shower is part of that too. It's not easy. Tapas is always hard. Yogaji once said, you know, serving the undeserving, serving the people who abuse you, serving people who smell bad, serving people who don't speak your language, serving people you get no acknowledgement from. That's also tapas. It's a very good growth experience if you can handle it. If you can handle it. Okay? So tapas is do the hard stuff, seek out the hard stuff, and watch out. If you're not seeking it out, it can visit you in all kinds of different forms. You know that word cancer? It's a growth experience. Potentially, it can kill you too. But a lot of people find it's a growth experience. It's very sobering, you know. So tapas is the hardship. Svajaya is look at yourself, especially, you know, judge yourself. And I don't say condemn yourself. I'm saying, you know, judge yourself, look at yourself, evaluate yourself, and do your best to maintain consistency, consistent elevation, consistent caliber. Yeah? And so that makes you steady, right? But that's not yoga, and it doesn't. There's not a whole lot of pleasure in it. It's a bit of ego. Oh, I'm such a disciplined yogi. Look at me. But what the hell? You know? The third pillar. That's what makes it. The third pillar is the human sacrifice. The Sanskrit is Ishvara Pranadana. It literally means take that wonderful capacity you've generated, that self-awareness and the consistency, and do something with it. Recognize your particular skills. Look around, either close around or far around, and find where the need is that you can most creatively and most effectively and most dynamically and most fruitfully fulfill that need. And then just do it, and do it without any hesitation. You know, like remember Van Gogh? Just go for it. Let there be oneness between you and your service. Yeah. So. Yeah, so Satnam is be yourself, and at heart, we are serviceful. Yogaji would say, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. So what do you do then when you see God in all? What do you do? Well, you have a very refined sense of, this drives all true spiritual teachers. You have a very acute sense of other people's pain. And then you address it. What else would you do? What else would you do? Right? That's Svajaya. Or we can call it Seva, or it's a third pillar of yoga. It's the fulfillment of a yogi's life. They become a human sacrifice. There's nothing gory about it. It's just, that's what it is. Sacrifice means to make sacred, right? Yeah, and Guru Ramdas had a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful kind of a thing you can chant. Japaman is Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam. You know, it means jump up, recite, you know, like in the Mool mantra, jump up, my mind, Satyanam, 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 Satyanam. Again and again and again and again. Remind yourself, you know, that's what japa is, because your mind is so scattered, it just tends to just go here and there all the time anyway. So you've got to keep repeating it, otherwise you lose it. That's what sadhana is too, you know, keep every morning, the same routine, yeah, because otherwise your mind is, I think I want to be Hare Krishna, or I think I want to be make $1 billion, whatever. You know? I mean, you can make $1 billion and still be Satnam, that's true. But don't lose sight of who you are. Don't lose sight of your happiness. I have a funny feeling there's a lot of unhappy billionaires out there, you know, just looking for the next billion because they're just feeling very empty inside. Yeah. And there's other words, if you're looking through Gurbani, that also represent Satnam. We've done a few that are very, very close, you know, linguistically very close, but Soham, you find that in Gurbani too, you know, in Guru Nanak's words, his poetry. Satpurk, Sat means real, right? Purk is a being, so the real being. Sopurk, same, that being, you know, true being, that being, this being, which being? You being you. Or Sacha Sahib, or Ad Purk, like Ad Shakti means the original being. Ad Shakti is the original power. Ad Purk means the original being. Beautiful shabd like it. Or Sachkhand. Or Or there's another term which is very nice, Nijgara. Gara means home. Nijgi means your own. So in Gurbani sometimes Guru Nanak talks about living in your Nijgara, your own home. Yeah? Don't be crashing on other people's sofas all the time. Stay at home every once in a while. It means, be with yourself. The term Jivan Mukt. Jivan Mukt means liberated while alive. Sachkhand. Khand means a place, such the real place. No, the real place is right inside you when you're in yourself. You could locate that if you want, up here. Your highest being. This is the center of surrender, right? Or I call it sacrifice. That makes sense. But you can be Satnam at any of your chakras. You can be authentic. You can be authentically compassionate. You can be authentically poetic. You can be authentically romantic. Second chakra, let's say. But the important thing is be true to yourself. To thine own self be true. Make sense? Now, I've been talking for a long time. You know what I was doing before this? I was with the youngsters. And what we always do with the youngsters is we have fun. Can we do that in this group, do you think? Sure. Are we beyond that? Sir, are we beyond that? Is it okay if we have a little fun here? What? I'm feeling uncomfortable. You're feeling uncomfortable? Yeah. Okay, you can watch us if you like, or you can join the children over there, maybe. Okay, all right, well look, if you're able, please sit and let's do something a little outrageous. And it can be done in any language, by the way. Outrage translates really well. But it's good outrage, it's okay. So we're going to put our hands here, and we're going to say, anybody have a home language other than English in this group, by the way? Oh yeah, what's your language, home language? Yeah. Sorry? Filipino. Filipino. And you? She said something. Urdu. Urdu. Yeah? Russian. Yeah, wow. Spanish, yeah. And? Oh. Punjabi, cool. I'll tell you what, honestly, Americans are really challenged with second languages. They really, really are. I teach, normally I live in Canada, and we have so many immigrants that I love. If we have one person from Punjab, or one person from Mongolia, or one person from Bolivia, that we do this in their language, and it lights that person up. And in the seniors classes, I would have seniors classes, and learning a new language is good for your brain if you're old, and we had so much fun. But I don't want to tax the American brains here too much, so let's stick with English for now, okay? Just so you know that you can do it in Russian and Punjabi and in Filipino and in any language, Romanian, whatever. Anyway, okay, so let's just do English. Put the hands here, please, and say I. And if I say something that's wrong or too scandalous or whatever, don't follow me, all right? It's okay? Yeah. Am happy. Are we okay? So far so good? Okay. I am good. Right. So I am happy, it means it's our birthright to be happy. Yeah? And we're good by our nature. Right? It's not that we're proving that we're good through our action. No. You're just born good. Right? Like when you were a baby, everybody said, "Oh, they're so good." No? You may have cried, but it's just, there's something very special about every one of you. Every one of you. Alright? So let's do it. I am happy. Good. Let me go. I am good. And then watch. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Arms up a bit of an angle. It's some physiology. Come on, Phil. You can do it. Okay. And then no, sorry. Then reverse. Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru Ji. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru Ji. Again. I am happy. I am good. I am happy. I am good. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru, Wahe Guru Ji. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. You got it? I am happy. I am good. I am happy. I am good. Sadhana, Sadhana, Sadhana Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. Sadhana, Sadhana, Sadhana Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. How about, can you partner up with one person? And if we have an odd number, I didn't count it, you can do 3. Can you just, like you're going to do patty cake, okay, like that? Can you go knee to knee, please, with somebody? Yep, be sure nobody gets left out. And, well, there's another chair over there. Would somebody get a chair and join a friend that's sitting on their chair? No, nobody gets left out. Because that would be very unhappy. We don't want to be there. So who's going to sit on a chair, please? We need a second person on a chair.
That's why I was... that guy.
So there's a chair there.
That guy was sitting in a chair. Oh, I see. Play with us.
You don't need your mat. Just get the chair, please, and sit with our friend over there. Oh, okay. All right. So what are you doing down there? Can you get a chair, please? Let's hurry up. We're wasting a lot of time. Chalo, chalo, chalo. Jaldi, jaldi. You can teach you some Spanish. You can teach you some Punjabi. All right, face each other like you do patty cake. You know, face? Face. Okay, I am happy. Now clap your hands together with your buddy. Like patty cake. You gotta be close enough you can clap your hands. Good. Now I am good. I am happy. Hands together. I am good. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Hands together. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. I am happy. I am good. I am happy. I am good. Satyanam, Satyanam, Satyanam Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. Sadhana, Sadhana, Sadhana Ji. Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Ji. Now whisper. I do it mentally. Keep going. You do it silently. Keep going. I am happy. I am good.
I am happy. I am good. Sadhana, sadhana, sadhana. Wahe, sadhana, sadhana, sadhana. I am happy. I am good. I am happy. I am good. Sadhana, sadhana, sadhana. Wahe, sadhana, sadhana, sadhana.
One more time.
I am happy. I am good. I am happy. I am good. Sadhana, sadhana, sadhana. Wahe, sadhana, sadhana, sadhana.
Now just sit when you're done. When you're done, just sit and feel yourself. And feel happy also. And feel the connection between being yourself and being happy.
We are doing a beautiful work in Ukraine on different war zones, specifically for PTSD.
Right, breathe in please. Exhale. Say gracias or whatever you say in your language to your partner. Thank you. Come back where you were. So I think it's 5:14. I think maybe in another 15 minutes we can have a pretty good class. Okay? Yeah, another 15 minutes. So that's fun, no? It crosses a lot of barriers, breaks a lot of ice, and you can do it cross-culturally. If you find somebody who's just arrived in the country or in town and you speak another language, you can do so much good, so much wonderful good for that person to engage their heart by asking in their language. Ask, how do you say I'm happy in your language? How do you say I am good? And then get a whole group of people saying it. You can't describe it. It's magical. So think about it sometime if you teach a yoga class, or even if you don't. You have a gathering someplace. It's fun. I've done it in a Gurbani, crazy place to do this thing. But even then, you get. When it's cross-generational, it's insanely fun, You get children and grandchildren, and parents and grandparents. It's nuts. Yeah, especially, the parents are usually the ones that are imposing order, right? And then they're with their children going, I'm happy, I'm good. It's just anarchic, but it's so much fun. It's so heart-centered, it's so pure. Okay, so Satnam is not another religion. It's doesn't help all the religions, and the holy wars and all that stuff. Satnam is just a very, very pure concept. It is the essence of what Guru Nanak taught. And it carries through in Guru Gobind Singh and the Khalsa. I mean, those were saint soldiers. They were real saint soldiers. They took on the Mughal Empire, and at a tremendous cost. But eventually they brought down the Mughal Empire, and not singly. I won't say the Sikhs alone brought down. They did not. But they were a very powerful force. Would not be destroyed. And their core was this intrinsic being. You cannot force me to become, I'm not going to fill in the blank, to join my religion, to give up my religion and join the emperor's religion. You cannot make me afraid. Even in the prayer, there's the mothers who, their children were chopped into pieces and put garlands around their neck. That was how much they valued their intrinsic being, their freedom. You can't push me, you can't scare me, you can't bribe me, you can't coerce me to do the evil things, or just the stupid things. I have my own destiny, and you embracing your way of life, your creed, your religion, your whatever, eating cows, it's just not my thing. And so, yeah, so we have our martyrs, our Sikh martyrs, Guru Arjan, who sat on for 5 long days and nights. We have our Guru Tegh Bahadur, who just were very self-contained and could not be bossed, could not be pushed around. They had a very strong sense of their self. And you know, the nice thing, again, if you want, if you have a curious mind, I've written books for curious minds, which answer a lot of questions, you know, how Sikh Dharma fits into the world, you know, world culture, historic history. You can go there if you want. We've also got a book on how Sikh Dharma and yoga connect. Very important questions. If you don't know, if you can't respond to a challenge on those questions, heaven help you. You know. I like to be ready. I mean, I really like this. I'm prepared for any argument anybody wants to throw at me, any challenge, because I've done my work. You know? And I'm old enough that I've had time to do a lot of work. I've studied, and I've studied with other people who've done really good work. So, look, I'm just going to throw out some things that are just, I mean, Sat means real, also. Sat means real. And so, I mean, this is such a realistic and such a beautiful, self-respecting way of life at heart. I mean, and we don't do what some of them are calling magical thinking. I mean, there may be a teeny bit of it, but it's certainly not central to what we do. I mean, we don't...
like, what do you mean by magical thinking?
Where did that voice come from?
What do you mean by magical thinking? Like, what do you...
Well, for example, I was reading an article by a really good Kurt Anderson, a very good journalist about America. Written a couple of wonderful books. One is called Evil Geniuses. It's about how the very rich got very rich over the last 50 years. Another thing is called Fantasyland. And one of the, actually somebody introduced the term to me just a couple of days here. And they were talking about the same thing about, so in the book, he says there's a Pew study about 8 years ago that showed that Christians, God bless them, I mean, they have their right and they have their mythology. Leonard Cohen used to say, let us compare mythologies. You know, let's compare mythologies. It's wrong, but mythology is a mythology. But when you say that heaven is a physical place, that defies everything we know, you know, and hell as well. But according to that survey, I think it was like 70-some% of Christians still think it's an actual place. Despite Galileo and despite Copernicus and despite we're shooting junk up there all the time, you know. I was studying that very particular subject just a few months ago. I mean, they said that beyond the stars, there's a place, that's sort of an ice-like kind of a chamber, a kind of a cone, and that's where God is. And Christianity never changed that, even after that magical thinking was disproven. So there's no new, we made a mistake, actually it's someplace else. It hasn't really been formulated. And hell the same, not quite as much. I think about 30% of you think hell is a place too. That's magical thinking. So we don't do that. We do with chakras. For me, the chakras are the heavens, like the 7 heavens. This is 7th heaven. But you don't have to, that's not magical thinking, that's psychological thinking. We don't do the magic. We don't do chosen people, you know. I mean, we can say Raj Karega Khalsa and all, you know, Khalsa shall rule the world and all will be safe in his fold. But that's that inverted pyramid. You know, if you're a Khalsa, you are at everybody's service. You know, it's not like you're taking privileges or that you say, oh, well, these people are useless and we can put them in a concentration camp or something like that. You know? So, there's no chosen people here. No heaven, hell. We don't have a virgin verse. We don't really bank on that. That's not a big thing for us. Seva is huge. I mentioned those studies, those 4 Sikh studies, or the 2 studies by the 4 scholars. So they didn't get Seva. It's easy to overlook, but it's so core. So, I mean, if you're a human sacrifice, like I say, you know, the 3rd pillar of yoga, it's all about Seva. There are requisites to it. I mean, you've got to have your head together. I mean, all of the really great humanitarian organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, they will screen everybody because they don't want cowboys. They don't want heroes showing up. They want balanced people who are not going to put other people's lives in danger. So that's a yogi. That's by description a yogi. And of course we have the 4 states of consciousness. We have 4 states of consciousness. It means we have sleeping, dreaming sleep, normal waking consciousness, and then we have what's called Turiya, which means the yogic frame of mind where you're seeing God in all, you're seeing yourself in everybody. So that's 4 states. Psychiatry hasn't gotten there yet. You know, they don't have role modeling yet, which we have. And I think that's so huge, so important. 4 objectives of life. Look at the 4 objectives of life according to, this is quoted in Guru Granth Sahib. The 4 objectives of life is very classical Indian teaching. First is calm. Love somebody, get loved, you know. Calm is the whole Kama Sutra and whatever, but it's not just about postures, it's about engaging your heart, you know, on a human level. Get a dog, you know, whatever, you know. I'm not talking bestiality, I'm talking, you know, have a buddy. Love. And so the second one is art. Art means means. Basically it means get a trade, get a skill, get something, and figure out how to make ends meet so you can have a respectable life. You don't live in the gutter. Dharma means develop your sense of value, sense of justice, and live by those values. Live by your conscience. And moksha, if you really are ambitious, moksha means liberation. It means think out of the box. Live out of the box. Don't let other people inhibit you. Don't even let history inhibit you. You know? Great people break bowls all the time. Like our friend Vince, you know? Nobody painted like that before. Now people imitate him. Alright. So be somebody that other people want to imitate. Why not? Be original. Alright? So I think I'll just more or less I will say something from the talk we did last few days ago, and then I'll just finish with a little Guru Nanak thing and we'll go. One reason I'm so passionate about this theme of intrinsic being, not only because it makes sense, and it makes Sikh Dharma make sense, it makes Gurbani make sense, like nothing else has for me, but we are, as a humanity, whether we're from Russia or from Pakistan or from Philippines or from Los Angeles, wherever we are at a very dangerous place. We have a number of concurrent crises. One is the global heating crisis, and one is the huge disparity between the very rich and the very poor. Middle class is getting hollowed out, and the rich countries are getting richer by and large, and poor countries are getting poorer. There is a World Bank, and it happens, if you don't know this, the head of the World Bank is a Sikh, and he's a very good man. So there are people who are trying to reverse these trends, but how the wealth disparity ties in with the climate crisis is that the very, very rich have a hugely disproportionate effect on the climate crisis. Their carbon emissions, the carbon emissions of a billionaire compared to somebody who's working at Walmart here, they are going to have maybe roughly, it's been done, I mean the stats have been done, about almost 10,000 more more damage, more carbon emissions than a regular cashier at Walmart. That with their yacht, and with their private plane, and with their several mansions, and with their cars, and all that stuff, and their expensive diet and tastes and shopping and all that stuff. And which I consider inconscionable. It is legal. It's legal, but when the climate crisis is killing our children, not killing us, especially old people, we'll probably die of natural causes. But it's possible that, very possible, it's likely, I would say, that children and grandchildren are going to die in wars, if not from drought and flood, from drought and flood, it will be from wars based on a shortage of resources like water and food, which is exacerbated by the climate crisis. And that's, the average Joe, especially there are people in the so-called developing world, like in Laos or in Congo, or I was just in Ecuador, there are places where they don't have much industry. They don't contribute much to it. We, sorry to say, we in Canada also are the culprits. And there is a movement, they call it climate justice, which there are a lot of people that are very articulate, they know their stats, they know the history, and they are asking for us to pay up, as Northerners, as Europeans, to to help them to rescue each other. I mean, down there, I mean, they don't have the facilities to rescue one another if there's a big flood, like we do here. We're set in so many ways. And they don't have the facility. They don't have electric cars in South America because they don't have the infrastructure. There's a lot, most Africans still don't have electricity. I didn't say internet. They don't even have electricity. And we think, you know, we're so just and so kind and so good. So it's very unjust. It's very unchristian. It's very inhuman, and we are making them suffer, and we're not paying up. The cost is about $1 trillion a year. It has been costed by economists if the very rich were just properly taxed, not overtaxed, just properly taxed, and if the tax havens were taken care of, and if the oil corporations who were the cause of this, if they were made to pay a very hefty tax, eventually put them out of business, we would have the money to properly fund climate amelioration. We call it funding, responding to climate crises, and building infrastructure, building, say, solar power in developing countries, so they never go so deeply into carbon emissions as we have. Does that make sense? But the whole thing is that we're having a trend towards urbanization, right? Everywhere around the world, people are tending to go to the cities. And the more you're urbanized, the more you are extrinsically motivated. The more you're motivated by the dollar, the more you are motivated by external stuff. Like if you live in a city and nobody knows you, you want to look good. So you spend money on looking good, or driving something impressive, la-di-la. Whereas if you just know people, say if you're in a village, or even help you if you're in a tribe, I mean historically we all lived in tribes, that's just not a thing. Everybody just cooperated, and in a tribe, nobody's filthy rich, because everybody needs each other. And there's no place to store all that stuff anyway. You're going to pick up and get on your horse and move again in 6 months anyway. Understand? So we've got a system that's very wacky. If you have a mind for it, check Kurt Anderson's book, or if you're good with stats, there's a fellow called Thomas Piketty in France. He made so many beautiful statistical models of how filthy the filthy rich can get. And like they did in the 20s, then it got very nice. People, you know, the middle class came up through the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, and then it started to go down again here. But there's also the history of, he's done the history of France and the Republic, history of Britain, history of India, China. It's a phenomenon that happens everywhere. And the most wonderful country, by the way, to live in many ways. It's a country where you can work at McDonald's and still make a living wage, is Denmark. Denmark, the Prime Minister rides to work on a bicycle. And there's very, very little difference between the income of the very high and the very low. Yes, they get taxed, but nobody goes without doctor's care, and people feel safe. The most amazing story, I know we're way over time, maybe we're not getting this videotape, I don't care, but the most amazing story I heard recently was that the mothers, they go to, you know, some place like Starbucks, and they leave the strollers outside, and they're not worried the stroller's going to go. Even the children are in the strollers.
Wow.
That's how safe it is. We've created a different kind of culture. A culture of strangers and a culture of money, great wealth. But there's something lacking. Don't you think? So my feeling is if we can really build on intrinsic being, build on Satnam, and make that a core value for more people, and more people, so they can feel the fun of it, you understand? It's not a moral thing, thou shalt be happy, thou shalt be good. No, that's not gonna work. But if you can make movies and jokes about it, get people doing that, I think the world has a chance. Does that make sense? Is that crazy thinking? No? Okay, let's put our hands together. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on, guide your way on, guide your way on. Thank you, Creator, for all of your blessings. Thank you for the blessing of Satnam, and the blessing of Guru Nanak who gave it to us, and the blessing of Yogi Bhajan who brought it to our our shores, to our generations. May we live in our intrinsic being. May we be joyful for no good reason at all. May we be happy. May we share. May we radiate our own joy. Just simply be ourselves, being original, outrageous, carefree, wonderful, by your grace.